Please sit down. We have a terrific conversation. Thank you very much. Please sit down, ladies and gentlemen. One more time. Please sit down. It's good? Yeah. Yeah. We have a terrific last conversation of the day between Andrew Mason, who we heard this morning, the founder and CEO of Groupon. Could you please keep it down a little bit? And Gilles Babinet. Gilles? Finally.
It's wonderful to meet you. Good to see you.
Serial entrepreneur, head of the CNN. So, guys, take it away.
Probably, just so that you get it, CNN doesn't mean the network. Huh? CNN means Conseil National du Numérique, so that you don't get confused. So, if you please can sit down so that we can start this wonderful conversation. Here you have a guy, Andrew Mason, who's interesting in many ways, and probably one of these ways is that he's the CEO of, and the founder, obviously, of the fastest ever growing company in the world. You know, he made something which no one did ever before, which is building up a company which is now reaching 7,500 employees, and the company is what? Less than 3 years old. So I think that's cool. That's cool, and I mean, if we can get a little bit of the essence which created that would be certainly interesting. So thank you for being here. Thank you. And I think, frankly, we can make a warm applause to Andrew, who came especially for the show. So just tell us. I mean, you fine? You okay?
I'm okay.
You okay? You like being here?
Yeah, Paris is beautiful. It's always great to have an excuse to come out here. We also have an office here with about 400 employees that we started a little over a year ago. So it's great to see the team here.
So you told me that you work like a dog. It's kind of a holiday for you, yeah?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs starting a company in the early years that I've ever met, I think yourself included, end up spending a lot of time working. So even if you can just be in Paris for a couple of days, it's a nice respite.
How is doing France?
How's what?
Doing France.
For Groupon, it's great. It's one of our it's one of our best markets. We've been surprised and delighted to see how universal the Groupon model is. Just the basic idea of serving as a city guide, exposing people to new experiences that they might not otherwise have by pushing them deals on all sorts of different things, and giving them a large enough discount to take the risk out of trying something has worked as well in the U.S. as it has in France, as it has in China and Korea and in Japan. So we're in 46 countries now, and the model works very well everywhere we've tried.
Do you see a lot of differences between countries?
Some slight differences in the types of deals that people like, but overwhelmingly there are more similarities than there are differences.
Okay. So, in here, personally, as an entrepreneur, I like to know the trick. There is a trick, or maybe several. If you were to summarize the 3 things that you do well, what would you say?
I think a focus on the customer and an ability to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and understand what needs to be done to make them happy. I think when we started the company, we actually pivoted. It was originally this social action platform, and that was more focused on trying to change the world and altruistic causes. And when we started working on this coupon company, in order to keep ourselves from killing ourselves, we thought, if we're going to do a coupon company, we have to make it the coolest, most user-friendly coupon company in the world. So we did things like put our customer service phone number on the coupon itself, which was unheard of. We created a completely open return policy, giving their customers their money back even after they used a Groupon, if ever they feel like we let them down. So things like that, I think we've always, as ourselves, the company is run by irrationally entitled Gen Y Americans, and we know how our customers think. So we're the kind of people who, if we're put on hold for more than a minute or two by the cable company, we start demanding, a year's worth of refunds. So we just try to imagine that every one of our customers has that same mentality and go above and beyond to serve them. So that's one thing. I think beyond that, one of the benefits of not being in Silicon Valley is it gives us a naivete and a fresh take on how to start an internet business, where if you're in Silicon Valley, I think you look at the idea of a salesperson with the same kind of skepticism with a major skepticism. And we realized that self-service isn't always the answer, that if you're a small business owner, you're not always particularly sophisticated. And if we wanted ubiquity, if we wanted the ability to touch the greatest local businesses, we were going to have to build a sales force. And we've done a great job at building a merchant network, largely through brute force and hiring tons of people. Like you said, we have 7,500 people around the globe, and that's largely just to maintain relationships with our merchant partners.
That's the first thing is taking care of the consumer, listening to the consumer. Do you personally listen to consumer? I mean, do you meet with consumer?
Just casually. I don't formally meet with customers, although you're making me feel bad, like maybe I should. So at least so I can say yes when somebody asks me that question next time. But I mean, I get enough context from reading customer service emails and just talking. I go out and use Groupons all the time, so I talk to the merchants about what their experience is.
You talk to your consumer. I mean, mostly.
Our consumer and our merchant partners.
Yeah. And the second point is in some way being naive. Could we say that? You said that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's figuring out how to build a sales force. And that touches every different merchant. So naivete got us there, but it wasn't the end all.
Is there a third point?
Just being good looking. Not
That's
really.
A good one. Okay. Okay. So I mean, it's certainly a strange question given your track record. But what did you do wrong?
A lot. Most of what we did wrong was, so like I mentioned earlier, Groupon's been around since November 2008, but for about a year and a half before that, we were this other company called thepoint.com, and we made the switch. Basically, thepoint.com was this broader platform for organizing collective action. And one form of the collective action we were organizing was group purchasing. And so we just took that complex, abstract technology and applied it to this one specific use case, and that became Groupon. But I think the mistake we made originally was going far too broad, trying to solve a massive problem and be all things for all people, and we ended up doing an okay job at serving everybody, but not a great job at serving anyone. So by focusing in and trying to do something that really well, that was very simple, I think that was our big learning in the early days that we still try to follow in everything that we do today.
And actually, I was surprised because, for preparing this talk, I called a few friends and I told them, what do you think about Groupon, And actually, I got, I would say, good feedback, but a few said, it didn't work, I weren't happy with the service and so on. And talking to you, I really feel that you take the consumer as the most important thing, and you want to make sure that the consumer gets happy. So, the question, I don't want to get into this too much in detail, but I think the important thing is, what are you think you're going to do in the near future, probably to increase the quality of service you're providing?
Well, one of the real challenges of the Groupon model is we're pushing a deal to our customers every day. And we have to make a guess about what we think would be interesting to them. And 70% of our users are female. They tend to be young, urban customers. So if you're a male living in the suburbs, then you're not going to have as good of a Groupon experience as our core customer. And we want Groupon to be something that unlocks the city for everyone. So our largest focus is on relevance and trying to figure out how to develop personalization technology that allows and close enough deals that every day we can serve something meaningful to every consumer that we touch. And we've invested heavily in building a technology office in California and building out those algorithms in order to make the experience more and more personal. And we've been experimenting with that with great success in the U.S. We haven't brought it overseas yet, but we're expecting to soon.
Okay, great. Because I tried Groupon. I'm not, obviously, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not a consumer. But I've tried it just the past week, and I was surprised to see how much spam, sorry to say, but I get. And I think that you probably need to work on the profiling on consumer. So you're working on that.
The other thing that we're trying to do is we think of Groupon as having gone through 3 phases so far. The first phase was just doing a deal a day. And that worked really well when we were 7 guys in the corner of somebody else's office, and all we had was a cool idea, a technology platform, but we didn't have any customers and we didn't have any merchant relationships. Even if we had more deals that we could run, it's unlikely that merchants would, it's unlikely we could drive enough customers to actually justify the merchant having a good experience and getting the customers they want. So that worked well at small scale. The second phase, which we've been doing mostly in the U.S., is personalization. And we started doing that when we had so many merchants that wanted to be featured that we had a backlog 6 months or 9 months long of people who wanted to be on Groupon. So we developed personalization to widen the pipe and allow us to feature more merchants and give them what they want while better distributing the flow of customers across those merchants. So now we're starting to do something really interesting, which is a new product called Groupon Now. And either from your mobile device or your website, you can tell it your location. You can say what you want to do. You can say, I want something to eat, or I'd like to go out and get a drink, or I want to have fun, I want to go bowling, whatever. And we're working with thousands of merchants in every city to offer real-time deals that are only available for a window of a few hours typically. But it's enough that you can discover something interesting to do in a variety of categories right now, whatever time of day it may be. And that's moving from more of a push experience where you have to be way smarter in order to guess right what the customer wants, to a pull experience where the customer tells us what they want and we give them something nearby and relevant that they can use immediately. So I think for the customers who feel like the daily deal isn't relevant enough for them, then we encourage them to give Groupon Now a try. It just launched in Chicago, and we're hoping to bring it to France later this summer.
Okay, I get that. So you need to personalize and to profile people. So to that extent, is a company like an offering like Facebook Deal a potential threat for you? I mean, in terms of social graph, they know everything about consumers.
Again, I think what we've done really well is built up this network of relationships with local merchants, and it's taken hiring thousands of salespeople around the world to do it. And it's a hard, grueling business that's just getting out there and executing every day. So that's really, I think, what's allowed us to succeed is just the selection we have available and the wide variety of merchants that we feature, and the competitors that have had some success are all ones that have managed to replicate that Salesforce model to some degree.
Okay, I've noticed that in many of your speeches, you say to your employee, we need to keep the consumer happy. Happiness seems to be pretty important for you. Is that right?
Yeah, is that weird? I think
no, it's not. No, I mean it's something which probably is. I mean, at least in Paris, it's not really the custom. You know, we wouldn't put happiness as the first thing that makes a company successful.
Well, in your companies, for example, what do you put first?
I think it's true. You're right. I mean, you need to break through things, and if you're like totally terrorized by your boss, you don't create. So you're right. I buy this, but you know, this is why I want to hear you about that.
Well, I'll tell you why I harp on it internally, at least, is because for the first 2 years, and even today, every investor that came through Groupon or even non-investors, just general smart people would ask, what makes Groupon unique? How do you fend off the copycats? How do you what are the competitive barriers to entry? And it freaked me out. Like I never necessarily knew what the answer is. I would say something, but and it sounded good at the time, and people would kind of nod their heads, but I don't know if it's true. And after getting asked, and then I would go run around and think, what can I build that will create competitive barriers to entry? And that was kind of the fundamental or the primary driver for some decision making. And then after doing that for a while, after like the 5,000th person asked me what those competitive barriers to entry were, and I looked around at the landscape, and there are over 2,000 Groupon competitors, and we're still far and away by many multiples the number one business in the space. I realized that either we have those barriers to entry or they just don't matter because we seem to be doing okay. And then I thought about the things we had built and the things that we had done that really, the things that really made people love us were the ones that we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Or as a consumer, I would really love this feature. It was all stuff that was where the primary motivation was making our customers happy, and the competitive barriers end up happening as a side effect. Like that stuff just takes care of itself when you're building a product that people love. And I think when you're running a business, you can be seduced into making things more complicated than they actually are. I mean, it's as simple as as talking to your customers, which I don't do apparently, but talking to your customers and understanding what they want and making sure that you do those things.
Okay, and so happiness is important, but being paranoid seems to be important as well. Is that right? Because we spoke just before this session, and I asked you if you were a fan of Andy Grove, and you told me in some way yes. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I think you meant, because he wrote a book called Only the Paranoid Survive, which I haven't read, but I think that idea resonates with me. It's when we were working on The Point in the early days, I had this, I'd stubbornly adhered to this 5 or 10 year vision of how The Point was going to change the world and solve all the unsolvable problems out there. And and I was so sure that it was just meant to be that I had this almost cavalier, if you build it, they will come attitude about the product. And it led to bad decisions like waiting 9 months to launch something when we really should have gotten something very simple out in 3 months. So after going through the experience of being proven wrong at The Point, when we started working on Groupon, the attitude we had from the beginning was always kind of the sky is falling. And even though things are going well, let's not focus on what's going well. Look at all these problems. Let's focus on those things. And just not taking anything for granted. So I think the overall tone of the leadership at Groupon is such, it's almost counter to how the business is doing. So when the business is doing really well, as it has been, the business leaders are the ones are often trying to bring people's enthusiasm down and inspire a sense of paranoia in them. And then when things aren't going as well, it's the other way around. But since things have gone so well, it's a pretty morbid environment for the most part in our management meetings.
It's impressive. So if I summarize what you just said, is that you need to be happy and paranoid, and the both work together pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, you need to make your customers happy, and I think you can be paranoid about the business without creating a negative work environment. There's still plenty of good things that are just happening naturally, and just the natural momentum of the business carries people along.
So you need to be caring instead of paranoid, maybe. Yeah. Okay. So how far do you think your business can go? Do you think that the French can buy their baguette using Groupon? You would have some problem if you do that. Too.
Can the French buy his own
baguette? Yeah.
Well, where we'd like to take the business with something like Groupon Now, which I encourage you to check it out at groupon.com/now. If you go to Chicago, you'll see it in action. We're trying to build something that's more like a true local e-commerce marketplace. And we tried to build it in a way that reflects the way that we think people shop locally, which is when I want to get lunch or I want to get dinner, there's this stat that 80% of people at 4 o'clock don't know what they're going to eat for dinner at 6 o'clock. People tend to make these decisions at the last minute, and they do it when they're hungry. And then when they've decided they're hungry and they want to go out and eat, they almost discount the same. They would rather do something different. It's the opposite of how people buy products. Like when you find a brand of trash bags that you like, you tend to buy the same trash bags over and over. You've kind of solved that problem. You don't want spice in your trash bag life. But with local experiences, you always want to do something different. So the way we built Groupon Now is you just tell us that you're hungry, and we'll reveal a a business where you can get something to eat at a great price. And what we're trying to do by sending customers to the businesses that need them when they need them is become the marketplace that's finding the price that balances supply and demand for these local businesses, which is something that's never really existed before. And by serving our role as curators, as people who are obsessed over quality of the businesses that we're featuring, we make it easy to try businesses that the consumer hasn't, that are local, that aren't just the big brands. I mean, a lot of times when people go to chains, fast food chains or quick serve restaurants, it's because they know it's safe. It's not because they think it's great. And if they go to a chain, there's a 50% chance it'll be better than, or there's a 75% chance that it'll be better than just a random business that you know nothing about. So we're almost like this Uber brand that consumers trust will deliver a good experience, and if we don't, it's easy for you to punish us by getting a full refund. And we think that helps to unlock cities for people and unlock really interesting local experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Would you see yourself as a discovery engine?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah?
For sure. Yeah, I think that's all that we do. I think we're the really cool thing, the thing that makes Groupon so fun to run, is knowing that every day we're catalyzing lifelong passions for thousands of people around the world. I mean, people get a customer in Paris will get an email for 70% off rock climbing, and they'll say to themselves, I've never once considered taking a rock climbing class, but what the hell, at 70% off, I might as well. And then they do it, and they fall in love with it. I mean, that doesn't happen for everybody, but it does happen for some people, and then they become a rock climbing enthusiast. I realized that this was happening when I was at a conference, and I went to a session on speed reading that was given, the session was moderated by somebody who learned to speed read via a Groupon that they purchased. And it's really cool to be exposing people to all these different things that they wouldn't otherwise do, instead of just going out to the same bar or going to the movie theater every time they're bored or hungry or want to get a drink.
Okay, so there is an issue that's often raised about Groupon, is about the margin. Will you keep this 50% margin, for the year to come?
So why is that issue raised? What do you think the problem with it is?
I mean, a lot of people say it's a lot.
Well,
but it still grow, actually.
I think the people that say, first of all, we don't charge 50% for every merchant. We do for many, but it depends on the industry to some degree. But I think the people that take issue with that are generally people who don't understand the unit economics of how a Groupon works. And if there's one thing that we haven't done well, it's educate people on how it works. And we're doing now a lot more of that, especially with our merchants. One of the challenges, and just to give an example, the cost of goods is often very low for these local businesses. So they have big margins. The customer, even though it's heavily discounted and we take 50% margin, the customer comes in, they buy, they spend typically considerably more than the value of the Groupon, and then they come back again as repeat customers. So when you add it up, the merchant is breaking even or making money on every customer that first time they come in the door. And then when you compare Groupon to other forms of advertising, the cost of customer acquisition is far, far lower on Groupon than it would be through putting up a billboard or putting an ad in the newspaper or something like that. And it's performance driven because the customer's only paying, the merchant's only paying when the customer comes in the door, so there's no real There's no real surprise. They know exactly what they're getting. And we found that merchants who, first of all, 90% of the merchants that we track are satisfied with their Groupon experience. Or we send a survey to every merchant that we feature. And for the ones that aren't, we found that the merchants who actually track the financial performance of their Groupon are happier than the ones who don't. It's just simply a matter of running the numbers and understanding all the inputs that go into making it a positive ROI campaign. So because the unit economics work, there will always be stories of merchants that don't have good Groupon experiences because it's advertising, and advertising amplifies what already exists. You know, we can't polish a turd. If it's a great business and it runs on Groupon, then it's going to be, we're going to make it better, we're going to get more customers there. If it's a bad business, then, or if they're not, for whatever reason, prepared to handle to run at scale, at capacity, then it can be bad. And that's why we put so much effort into pre-screening the businesses that we feature and making sure that we're only running high-quality businesses.
So you started as a social activist, can we say that? The point, it was activism somewhere. And you've decided that it was better to make some money. Do you think that you could in some way come back to that?
Well, we try to lace...
Maybe you can summarize what was the idea behind the point.
Yeah, the idea of the point was it was a way that I could start a campaign and say, I'll do something, but only if 10 other people do it with me, or whatever the number may be that allows us as a group to achieve something that one person couldn't do alone. So we originally started thinking about it as, man, these early termination fees from cell phone companies suck. I wish there was a way that all the customers could come together and threaten to switch to a competitor unless they got rid of these fees. So things like that, to give individuals the same kind of collective power that organizations have that allows them to stand up for their rights. And fundraising and group buying were other ways that this platform could actually be used, and that's how we ended up with Groupon. But we've continued to use Groupon for fundraising activities. We often run deals on the site that are to channel the money of our customers back into local charities in a lot of the markets that we're serving. We've raised millions of dollars for different charities over the years.
So it's back and forth. I mean, it works both ways, as I understand well. That's wonderful. So you want to increase that?
Yeah, I mean, we think it's an awesome opportunity to have to be in the inbox of millions and millions of people, and if we can help expose them to charitable causes that they care about, then that's something we should take advantage of.
Okay, you're a lot in the business of participation, we could say. How do you think this is a strong trend on the internet? Do you think it's going to increase, I mean, beyond Groupon?
Participation?
Yeah, bringing together people, e-democracy, stuff like that.
Yes, well, the internet does a great job at making things possible that couldn't be achieved by one person alone. And we've seen that with Groupon. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's the more explicit forms of participation or networking that occur on sites like Facebook, and it's more passive with Groupon. I mean, our original vision with the point was to allow consumers to go out and negotiate their own group purchasing campaigns. So I could go to the local coffee shop and say, if I can get 20, I'm going to cut a deal with you, and then I'm going to launch a campaign on the point and get 20 people to come in. Will you give us all a 50% discount if I do that? But then we decided that's too much work for the customer, and they're not actually doing it. So we decided we would become the party that was actually doing the negotiation, and all the group dynamics would end up happening in the background, and we would just make it feel very much like a traditional e-commerce experience, even though, and the customer almost doesn't need to know that the merchant wouldn't be offering these deals were it not for our ability to send thousands or tens of thousands of customers to their business.
What do you want to do in 5 years? What do you want to see? Where do you want to put yourself in 5 years?
We want to be something that people think about every time they're shopping locally.
Okay, makes sense. That's good. Great. So I think we have 6 minutes left. We'll take a few questions from the audience. Is there some mic? Yeah, we have mic here. Who has a question? No question? Here, there is two questions. The lady over there.
Bonjour. Hi. Hello. My name is Anne Besançon. I am the founder of Placecast. Andrew, we're actually working together. And I had a question about your deal with Looped and your deal with Foursquare that has just been announced. And also what you said earlier, which was really interesting, which is push is a lot harder to do than pull, because that's the business I'm in. So I'm really interested in...
No, wait, push is way easier to do than pull.
No, push is harder. You said push is harder to do and to satisfy the customer.
Sure.
Oh, yes, I did say that.
And relevance is key. Yes, you did say that. And I tweeted it too. But so the question is, how do you see location playing in relevance? And if you have this ambition of scale and everybody thinking of Groupon when they buy and being the solution for local, obviously physical reality plays a lot in that equation.
Well, location in local commerce is the most important factor in relevance and the largest influencer in whether or not people are going to buy something. We find if a business is within a quarter mile, the customer is 5 times as likely to buy. So part of the reason, now what we're doing with Groupon now, this real-time deal space, is not a novel concept. I think 2 seconds after somebody invented the internet, the guy next to them was like, well, we should do real-time local deals using that thing. And but nobody's been able to pull it off because in order to create a good local e-commerce experience where you're buying and using deals in real time, you need to have amazing density of deals and a huge amount of participation from local businesses. If you've ever used a local couponing or deal app in the past, you probably know the experiences. You open the app on your phone and 5 miles away, there's a 10% discount on socks. You know, it's nothing interesting. So, we've been thinking about this real-time hyper-local commerce space for a long time, but we've never felt like we've been able to build a good product until now. It took the growth that we had with our daily deals product in order to amass the critical mass of customers and merchants that we have, and we can now use that to offer the deal density that we need to satisfy customers.
So besides
Thank you.
I just want to follow on because this is really interesting. The Groupon Now app exists. You have now deals with people who are playing in the location space with Looped and Foursquare. And my question again is, I touch 268 million Americans with what we do at Placecast. I think that would be of interest to you. And it's not using an app because we think that app is a barrier because not everybody has an app. And even if you have an app, it's not necessarily open. And using GPS all the time drains the battery, etc. So the expansion of Groupon moving from the first gen to now, which is Groupon Now, very short shelf life, very fresh products, and a very good matching engine between what you know of your customers and what your merchants have to offer looks to me like where you're going. Just
Yeah.
check. Yeah, okay.
Do you want to do a deal right now?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Oh, that would be a first. The first deal right live at the
Right,
AGM.
right. What are your affiliate fees?
Well, this is not the deal we are working on with
okay.
your people, Mihir and Mike already. But
So
thank you.
last question. We take the question over there. I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
Hi, Andrew. Rajiv Goel, CEO of Pubmatic. So one of the things that I find interesting about Groupon is if you discount the inorganic growth, you've probably hired and onboarded something like 5,000 or 6,000 people in the last 2.5 years into the company. And I find that pretty interesting. Could you just talk a little bit about the approach and processes around how you identify, hire, and make productive that number of people in such a short amount of time?
I think we've done a really good job at hiring local entrepreneurs in all the countries that we're in who can behave mostly autonomously in following the playbook that we mastered in first the U.S. and then elsewhere, and hiring people. So we're in over 500 different cities now across 46 countries, and the growth has just happened in each one of those countries, and even the level below that in groups of cities, hiring great people who can do the hiring and finding a way to share the information necessary to do the hiring well. So I think it's the same kind of thing as how has Starbucks managed to open so many stores so quickly. It's once you figure out the playbook, it's a similar approach, and because the model works so well, regardless of what city or country you're in, it's maybe easier than it seems.
So I guess, sorry, you want to say something?
No.
Yeah, I guess we're running out of time. So thank you. Please make a warm applause to thank Andrew Mason, who is, you have to remember, is the fastest growing company in the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a wonderful day. Thanks to everybody. There are a couple of parallel events tonight. Have fun. Please bring some ID because you may be carded. And be back bright and early tomorrow morning. We start at 8:30. Thank you.